beliefs and what is best for students, making a commitment to effective deliberation, each one listening with an open mind while others are allowed to express their own points of view, even if one disagrees.
Thank you so much. And we're moving on now to the Pledge of Allegiance, which Vice President Mahoney will lead for those who'd like to take part. Thank you. And item 4 is a report of action taken in closed session. The board took no action in closed session. So we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Before we do that, I want to propose moving item 12A to before item 10, the approval of the consent calendar. And that's because we've got just a logistical scenario with the person who is presenting 12A.
Okay, I move that we approve the agenda with item 12A now becoming item 10 N-ish. Okay. Item 12A, and we'll put it there.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And now we're moving on to the fun part of the evening, which is our spotlight. And tonight's spotlight is Cornell Elementary School. And is everyone ready for that? Great. And here we have Principal Kat Floresca to lead us in this.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Stone, and AUSD Cabinet. For this year's Spotlight, I asked our Student Council to think about what makes Cornell special. And one theme that continued to emerge in our conversation was Cornell's dedicated students. As a group, we talked about all the ways that students show their dedication to the school. And this evening, our student council members are here to share the activities and places that bring out students' dedication to their school, Cornell Elementary. Perfect. Next slide, please. You want to go back just one slide. Please welcome Sadie, Carmela, Alix, Enoch, Charlotte, and Mikkel. Next slide, please.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Stone, and AUSD Cabinet. My name is Sadie Petrilli, and I am a 4th grade student council. Something I love about Cornell Elementary is our community time and student council. What are student council? Well, student council are 4th and 5th graders representing their school and class. During student council, we plan spirit days and help with events. Speaking of events, one event I love is community time. Community time is a fun, uplifting event we have once a month. During community time, we learn something new and sing the Cornell cheer. I think community time and student council are a great element to Cornell. Thank you. Next slide, please. Good evening. My name is Carmela. I am a 4th grade Cornell Student Council member. Cornell is special to me because the teachers at Cornell help all the students try their best and create more opportunities. Another reason I think teachers are so special is they all have unique teaching styles. This makes learning and school easy. Lastly, teachers have a lot of experience. This provides a funner learning environment. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Good evening. My name is Alix, and I am a 5th grade student council member at Cornell Elementary. Today, I would like to tell you about how awesome the buddy system is at Cornell. Almost every class gets assigned either a younger or older class, and the teachers pair you with someone in the other class that you probably don't know yet. With your buddy, you make art, play games, read, celebrate all kinds of holidays, and get to know more about each other. The Buddies program helps teach you how to make a new friend, be even kinder, and how to be a role model. This year, our 5th grade class got assigned 1st grade buddies, and I love my buddy for lots of reasons. Buddies is a fun time for Cornell students. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Good evening. My name is Enoch Wong, and I am part of the student council in Cornell. Spirit Days are good in our school because it brings the school together in a friendly and a unique way. For example, Pajama Day brings different kids together in a friendly and fun conversation. It also might make kids have new friends, and it will make kids experience at Cornell better and happier than before. That's why I think Spirit Days are great and unique in Cornell.
Next slide.
Good evening. My name is Charlotte. I'm a 4th grade student council member at Cornell. Something I like about Cornell is our vegetable and planting garden. Students are motivated to care for the garden's plants and veggies. Many students enjoy being in the garden's natural space and use it as a calm, free area to let go of school stress and escape being indoors. Kids also enjoy snacking on the garden's nutritious plants and veggies. The vegetable garden is only one of Cornell's great activities and things. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Hello. My name is Mikkel, and I'm here to talk about a very special place at Cornell Elementary, the Cornell Library. The Cornell Library is one of my favorite places at the school, and I always look forward to it. That's why I picked this topic to speak about. But we aren't here to learn what I like. So I asked Cornell students what they thought of the library. I got varied responses, but positive ones. Some of these were, it has lots of books. I love the librarian, Miss Kate. I like the this or that. The library has a would you rather each week. I like the vibe, like it's super chill. It is Minecraft books. I love the book fair. I love everything. Thank you, kindergartners. I also asked a 5th grade peer of mine, what's a library? Moving on. The Cornell Library is a place to learn, a place to escape from the troubles of an elementary school student, and it has a large variety of good books with a great librarian. It is one of the most special places at Cornell, and every student loves it. Thank you, and have a nice night.
Yes, Cornell is a very special place. And so, there you have it. Perspectives of Cornell by Cornell students. Students, could you please come back up to the floor? Just go ahead and line up. And let's give one more round of applause for our Cornell Student Council members. Thank you, students, on an excellent job and all of your hard work. Thank you, Ms. Shepard and Coach Joel, for all your work and dedication to the Student Council. And thank you, parents, for your continued support and raising our leaders of the future. Thank you.
Thank you, students, and thank you, Principal Floresca. Anybody here on the board have any comments after that wonderful presentation? It's a lovely way to start a meeting, particularly when it is presented by students. It's really just the most positive thing. Thank you so much. So we are now going to move on to item 7, which is our recognition. So the board recognizes and promotes awareness months, appreciation weeks, and national days months with proclamations that encourage the district to observe these occasions with appropriate events and instructional activities. And our student trustee, board member Shepard, is going to read this proclamation recognizing February as Black History Month.
Thank you. I just wanted to start by saying that I'm really proud to be representing this small but united and significant population of Black students in the district, and not just today, but every single meeting. And I also want to thank the board for making this proclamation a priority. Proclamation number 2024-25-04, recognizing February as Black History Month. Whereas Americans of African descent helped develop our nation in countless ways, those recognized, unrecognized, and unrecorded, and whereas African American history reflects a determined spirit of perseverance, cultural pride, innovation, and trends in its struggle to equally share the opportunities of a nation founded upon the principles of freedom and liberty of all people one day, and, quote, whereas in August 1619, the first documented Africans arrived in the English colony of Virginia. The group of West Africans enslaved by Portuguese slave traders. They were on their way to Veracruz aboard a Portuguese ship when they were captured off the coast of Mexico by an English warship and transported to Virginia, where they were put ashore at what is now Hampton, Virginia, and sold as involuntary laborers or indentured servants. And whereas slavery had not yet been institutionalized, so the Africans were informed they would work under a contract for a certain period of time before being granted freedom and the rights afforded other settlers. However, while European indentured servants were listed along with their year of expected freedom, no such information accompanied the names of African indentured servants. And whereas the historical arrival of the group marked the beginning of the trend in colonial America, where people of Africa were taken unwillingly from their homeland and transplanted to a foreign land, where they were condemned to a lifetime of slavery and racial discrimination, and whereas during the course of the slave trade, an estimated 50 million African men, women, and children were lost to their native continent, though only about 15 million arrived safely to a new home, the others lost their lives on African soil or along the Guinea coast, or finally in holds on the ships during the dreaded Middle Passage across the Atlantic Ocean. And whereas African Americans suffered enslavement and subsequently faced the injustices of lynch mobs, segregation, and denial of basic fundamental rights, end quote. Quote, whereas despite slavery, African Americans in all walks of life have made significant contributions throughout the history of the United States, including through the writings of Booker T. Washington, Phyllis Wheatley, James Baldwin, Toni Morrison, Ralph Ellison, Zora Neale Hurston, and Alex Haley, music of Mahalia Jackson, Billie Hollywood, John Coltrane, Bessie Smith, and Duke Ellington, resolve of athletes such as Jackie Robinson, Alethea Gibson, Jesse Owens, Wilma Rudolph, and Muhammad Ali, scientific advancements of George Washington Carver, Charles Drew, Benjamin Banneker, and Mae Jemison, vision of leaders such as Frederick Douglass, Mary McLeod Bethune, Thurgood Marshall, Martin Luther King Jr., and Shirley Chisholm, and bravery of those who stood on the front lines in the battle against oppression such as Sojourner Truth, Fannie Lou Hamer, and Rosa Parks, end quote. Whereas in 2020, we watched the murder of George Floyd, an unarmed black man by a white police officer, and the public lynching of Ahmaud Arbery by a trio of white vigilantes who chased down Mr. Arbery and shot and killed him in broad daylight, in the horrific murder of Breonna Taylor, an EMT paramedic from Louisville, Kentucky, who was sleeping in her bedroom when she was slain by bullets fired by police. And whereas from these tragedies rose an awakening and reckoning among communities across the world, and whereas the legacy of John Lewis lives on in Tasha Brown and Stacey Abrams as they continue to fight to retain our voting rights. In 2008, Barack Obama was elected as the first African-American president and served 2 terms from 2000 to 2017. An African-American woman, Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett, led the development of COVID-19 vaccine, and in 2021, Kamala Harris became the first female vice president and the highest-ranking female official in U.S. history, as well as the first African-American and first Asian-American vice president. Whereas in 1976, Black History Month was established as a month-long celebration to reflect on the history, teachings, and achievements of African Americans, and whereas the history and contributions of African American citizens have constantly been overlooked, misinterpreted, and undervalued in the curriculum of public education institutions prior to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and whereas the History Social Science Framework of California Public Schools Kindergarten through grade 12 states that the history curriculum of community, state, region, nation, and world must reflect the experiencing of people of different racial, religious, and ethnic groups and must be integrated at every level. And whereas the teaching of African American history and recognition of Black History Month is not an attempt to instill guilt or regret on the descendants of those who perpetrated acts of enslavement, violence, and hatred, or to attempt further victimization, the descents of those who were enslaved, brutalized, or suffered injustice. And whereas the teaching of African American history and recognition of Black History Month is an attempt to uplift and empower communities and teach our children to respect and honor the contributions of African descents in America. Therefore, be it resolved that the Albany Unified School District Board of Trustees proclaims the month of February as Black History Month and aspires that this proclamation will spur meaningful actions throughout the district for a better present day and keep AUSD on the path of a more equitable future. District administrators, teachers, and staff will commemorate this occasion with appropriate instructional activities.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate you reading through that whole very lengthy proclamation. We are now going to move on to item 9, public comment for matters not on the agenda. Does anybody here have any public comment? Anyone in our virtual audience? So seeing no one, I'm going to move on now to introduce our interim CBO, Chris Thomas, who is going to introduce our next. No, before the consent calendar. It was before. No, it's to before the consent calendar. I thought you said, I said before, and I thought you would agree with before. I heard you saying 10 something, but I wasn't sure what you were referring to, but, oh, I see now what you did, yeah. Okay. Well, we can do that first. Okay, let's do that. That's okay. So we're going to very quickly go to item 10, approval of the consent calendar. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't see that. Yeah, need my glasses on. I'm sorry, Mackenzie. Can we do the student board member reports, item 8? Thank you. Apologies.
That's okay. At Albany High School yesterday, the entire 10th grade class had an hour-and-a-half interactive presentation with Samuel Raff, a Holocaust survivor, Currently, students are learning about the Holocaust in English classes, so it was an amazing opportunity to learn firsthand from Mr. Ralph's personal experience. Today, the Global Medics Club had a blood drive in the AHS gym throughout the day. The club had over 53 appointments and enough walk-ins to reach the maximum number of 62 volunteers who could donate. At AMS, 7th graders have Math Carnival this Thursday and Friday, January 30th and 31st. At Albany Children's Center, tomorrow morning from 8:30 to 9, Cornell's Mandarin program is performing its Lunar New Year celebration during the Cornell Community Time. Cornell's Mandarin program has its Lunar New Year celebration on Sunday, February 2nd from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Solano Peralta Park. On February 9th, Ocean View's Mandarin program has its annual Lunar New Year celebration at Ocean View's multi-purpose room from 4 p.m. to 7. There is a transitional kindergarten/TK informational night for families with students who will be entering TK in kindergarten this fall, tomorrow, January 29th, from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Healthy Me music and movement program at the preschool is being introduced to the school throughout this month. Students can learn about health in a fun, interactive way through dancing and singing. That concludes the board report.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we are going to move quickly on to the approval of the consent calendar. Anybody have any comments or questions? Would you like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Are you public commenting on the consent calendar?
Yes,
Okay.
I am. Thank you. What's the time? I just wanted to bring up to, I don't know, your attention. I don't know if that's the right phrase. On the consent calendar in the personnel report, there is one piece on separation of service, and it is the central kitchen, the AUSD central kitchen manager, Simin Misagi. But what the consent calendar doesn't specify is the reason for the, I want to put it on quote, separation of services, that Simin succumbed to a very aggressive illness that ended in her dying rather quickly, perhaps not unexpectedly, but and I had commented before on her. We met her because, in addition to being to working at AUSD, she also was a hairstylist, and she's the person who we finally found that was a great person for our kids. She was amazing with our children, and then we lost touch temporarily during the pandemic, and my wife had the good sense of checking, well, maybe if I ask the chief, I don't know what the title of the person that runs the entire food program at the USD is, Sabine. If we ask her, maybe she can put us in touch, and sure enough, she did. And since then, we've been in touch with her, and she even, when we moved this last summer to a new place in Albany, she brought us a kettle to make espresso coffee, and that became something that we now do every day. And I thought it'd be a good thing to recognize her, even though she's invisible to most folks at AUSD. Thanks.
Thank you for recognizing her. Any more public comments on the consent calendar?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
I second. All in favor, say aye.
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 So the consent calendar is passed. Now we will move on to item 12A.
Good evening. I'm pleased to present up on the screen John Albrecht, who's with Arthur P. Gallagher, and he's here to present tonight the very riveting GASB 75 actuarial valuation of other post-employment benefits. John?
Yes, hello. I'm not sure do we need the report up, or we just follow along, or just explain the caveats and some summary of it?
Everybody should have a copy of the report, so if you want to just walk them through it, some of the
Okay.
highlights, that'd be great.
Sure. Okay, so, yeah, so this is GASB 75 report. It's an annual report. Every 2 years, there's a full valuation report, and every other year, there's a simplified report. This is the full report. So basically, the Albany School District offers retirement health benefits, and these are required to be listed under your certified reports, the CAFR. So what the report represents is the cash flows of while the members are working as teachers and other positions, and when they retire upon a certain age or leave the school, they receive certain retiree benefits. So the GASB 75 is it's represented by dollar liabilities, and like I said before, the full evaluation this year represents we get a listing of all the employees that are eligible for the benefits, and then when they're eligible, they can enact them at a certain time. So the benefits that are offered are like retiree medical and dental and vision. And there are two kinds of benefits offered. One's called an implicit benefit, and the other one's called an explicit. So the explicit benefit is given like a subsidy or a dollar amount upon eligibility and no longer working for the school. And then there's an implicit benefit. So when a person leaves the school, they get the same rate as a person that's currently working, because with medical insurance, the way it's underwritten, the higher your age, the more costly your retiree medical insurance would cost. So this provides a benefit called an implicit benefit, because the people that are retiring or leaving the school would be getting normally age 55 to 65. They get the implicit benefit of having the people that are actives that are much younger. They would be getting that average rate versus a much higher rate. So let's go to the executive summary, and some of the numbers that you have here for the fiscal year of 2024. This is for the period from June of 2023 to 2024. So that would represent all the members that are eligible and those that are receiving the retiree benefits. And again, the way the liabilities are calculated, it's based on cash flows of future projected cash flows of the current active members and those that are retired. So all these cash flows get counted up and projected, 30, 40 years in the future, and they get discounted by a discount rate that is used. It's used at the June 30th period. It's used as the bond rate that we have to look up, that is the GASB 75 mandates a certain discount rate. So if you look at the first key results, this is present value of future benefits. So that would be all the cash flows that would go into effect projected 30, 40 years if all the members were eligible right when they start. But there's an eligibility of attaining a certain year and a number of years of service. So what happens is when a person starts for the school, they accrue each year, they accrue a certain amount until they're fully eligible. And then that amount would go from 0 to the present value of the future benefits. So if you look at the first number, 43 million, that's the present value future benefits, but the OPEB liability, that's at 24.7 million. So that's, the number is lower because the service is accrued each year by someone. It depends on how many years of service and how old they are. So somebody who's 45 and has no years of service, they would have a present value future benefits, but their liability would be 0. And then every year that they accrue service, they would increase it until it would equal the present value future benefits. And then, so we have a beginning period and an ending period. So the difference hasn't really changed that much. There's different offsetting factors, different assumptions that we use to create the valuation. There's tables that we use that are normally used for pension tables that we get from a website, and those are of retirement and termination. So that would give us a sense of when the members would retire and would receive the benefits. So it's a different, what they call probability each year. And say someone goes from age 45 to 55, the probability increases. So if you look at the next box here, it just shows the some of the differences that occurred during the year. So it started out at 24.7 million, and then we have a thing called passage of time. So everything is discounted with interest, and each year, like I said before, that someone accrues another year of service, that's what increases. So that's called the passage of time. And then we have it, this is like a reconciliation. The plan experience, that would be the number of members that you have in your census from this year to the year before. And also if the cost of the medical insurance would increase or decrease, that would go under that plan experience. And then we have assumption changes, and the assumptions that we have would be something I mentioned before, the retirement tables of when someone will retire, termination. There's also participation, mortality studies that go into the valuation. The next page on page 2. Now, is there anyone that has any questions, or should I just keep on going?
Questions?
Not right now, but I'll have some later.
Yeah, do
Okay.
keep going.
So page 2, we have like a bullet point of the changes within the year. So like I said before, GASB 75 is an annual report. This year was a full valuation. Like I said before, we get data about claims, we update the retirement and termination tables, we get a new census, and then we compare it to the previous 2 years, the previous 2-year reports. That would be from fiscal year 22. Now, every other year, there's a simplified report that we don't need the census or any new data. Most of the time, it's just the change in discount rate. Like I said, every year, there's like a bond 20-year rate that once it's posted, that's what we use to discount all the cash flows to come up with the liability. So this page 2 just goes over the change of assumptions. And then there's the next page. This is just some actuarial linguistic about there's different standards of practice that we conform to with data. And then page 5, we go through the plan provisions of, there's eligibility based on, there's a teacher association, administrators, and then we go into the benefit designs on page 6, and that's how we calculate what we call a per capita rate of what the insurance, the medical insurance would cost per year. And with that, we have trends that we project out. So normally the trends are about 7% or more, and they scale down because we don't think that 7%, every year, 20, 30 years would, it would not become affordable. So the trend scales down from like 7% to 6% to 5% and stays constant at around 4%. So there are a lot of plans that are offered. I mean, normally I might have 2 or 3 plans. This one has 7 or 8. And then there's dental insurance and vision insurance. And so besides the medical, which has an implicit and an explicit subsidy, where the school gives a subsidy amount, the vision and the dental also gives a explicit subsidy, a certain amount. With dental and vision, there's no implicit insurance because the rate doesn't go up per your age like it does in medical insurance for medical costs. And then on page 9, it describes the explicit subsidy, what's paid that's used for medical benefits. And then we have the rates that are given. And there's other like administrative costs, but the rates for all the different medical plans. And then the second part of so the first part of the change from year to year is the experience. Like I said before, that was the change in the population, the census, and also the change in the costs of the plans versus what we expected from the last evaluation. So on page 11 has all the assumptions that are involved in calculating the liability. So depending upon how we get the contracts for whether it's single or husband and wife, there's different assumptions that we get. And up here shows the discount rate. So the discount rate didn't really change much for the year. The prior year was 3.65 and the end of the year was 3.93. So when the interest rate increases, the liability goes the other way and decreases because you're at a higher interest rate. Everything discounts more when you're going out 30, 40 years. There's a plan participation assumption, and that's based on members on whether or not what their full-time status is. If they are at a 1.0, they're 100%. We go into the healthcare trend. There's mortality rates. We use mortality tables based on teacher or general population.
John, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Would it be possible, just because we've all had a chance to kind of read through it and look through it, because you asked for questions earlier, if we jumped in with just some questions and we could pinpoint on those, is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. That'd be just super helpful for me because I'm starting to get muddled. Okay.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, because I don't know everyone's history throughout. How much exposure they've had to this. So I'm just going page by page, like if you've never seen it before. So if you have more specific questions, sure.
You want to jump? Because I think.
Yeah, my question, actually, my question is probably more for interim CBO Thomas, which is, so with this liability on our books, and I'm sorry, I'm getting some feedback. Like, what's the general impact of this on the current budget? Or, like, in other words, how much is like the annual outlay? How much is the annual outlay against this liability, for this liability?
Yeah, and the actuarial report does not really comment on the general fund budget necessarily. It's really trying to create what that liability is. And so our auditors use this report to report that liability, and they share a lot of these details in our financial audit, which you'll see. But to your question, we actually use a 3% payroll tax rate for retiree benefits. And so for the general fund, that budget is right now about $890,000. That does not include the cafeteria fund or the state preschool fund. And what we do is we charge those expenses every time payroll runs. We put it in a liability account, and then we use that liability account to pay for the retiree benefits. Just for you to know, GASB 75, we're only required to do that because we're a member of CalPERS, and as a member of the CalPERS Health Benefits Plan, because they offer retiree benefits, then we are subject to GASB 75 because there's a lifetime benefit that does impact the cost that we have to pay. And so a lot of districts don't necessarily have to do GASB 75 because they don't either have lifetime benefits or they're not a member of CalPERS.
Thank you.
I guess to follow on that, some districts don't do that and some districts do. And so that's just something that Albany has always done and offered, and it seems like something that keeps us competitive, I would assume.
I mean, CalPERS is, and that's why, as Mr. Albrecht talked about, there's a lot of plans. That's because we're in CalPERS, and CalPERS offers a very large plan offering, where other districts I've worked for are in more of a JPA, and they might only offer a Kaiser and a Blue Shield option. So yes, CalPERS is a good way to go. You've got a lot of, they're kind of the big elephant or big gorilla in the room, and so they can wield a lot of power to try to keep those rates competitive. But you also have very little input as a district because they basically make decisions and we don't have a lot of input in that. But it is a very competitive plan, and a lot of districts do participate.
I guess I would just also ask, is there anything in this that like we should really be focusing on, or anything that we really should have concern around or should think about in terms of budgeting? Yeah.
It's $1 million a year, $900K
Right.
for people.
Right. But it is a reason a lot of people go into teaching and stick in a district. So I hear it. So I think we have to, we should know that and kind of see. Yeah. I mean, anything we should.
The big picture.
I think the
This is what we're after,
purpose
yeah.
of GASB 75 is really for districts and other local government agencies to disclose what is the long-term liability that's associated with being a member of CalPERS and therefore offering lifetime benefits. Or maybe they just offer lifetime benefits through their own health plan. But most of this does not hit our budget. It's disclosed in the audit report as a long-term liability. There is a pay-as-you-go amount, but for us, what we do is we use a payroll rate to kind of recognize that annual pay-as-you-go expense. John, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, that's well explained. I mean, I think we could go through, I mean, all the rest of the assumptions are just listed and explained pretty well in the report. It just shows a lot of different numbers, but it shows all the different ages, like the different probabilities of like termination rates and retiree rates. At the end, page 16, we have the active population. So it shows there's 425 actives and 153 retirees currently receiving benefits. And again, the explicit subsidies, the CalPERS part, extends past 65, but the implicit medical insurance stops at age 65. So I want to go to the exhibits. That would be past page 19. So maybe this will like show you, where the numbers, the little split of some of the numbers. So Exhibit 1 shows you, like I said before, the present value of future benefits, and that would be similar if there were no eligibility. Anyone can join day one, and then next day say, "Oh, I want to retire," and that would be how much the liability, the long-term liability, would be. So the next number here, the liability as June 30th, 2024, it's 24.5 million, and you can see how it's split up between the actives and the retirees. So it's 19 million for the actives and 5 million for the retirees. So as the actives age through the system, they would eventually get to the 43 million in the total, the present value, the 43 million. And if you notice that the retirees and the present value future benefits are the same as the OPEB liabilities. So that's something to keep in mind. And then there is an annual expense that's at the bottom here at the Exhibit 1, and that just shows you the year-by-year change of the liabilities. So the service cost is a calculation of a year, like a 1-year period of the service cost. And then there's an interest cost to that. And then you'll see from the next exhibit, the changes of experience and assumptions get amortized in this accounting scheme. And there's changes in assumption and differences between expected and actual experience. These two numbers, 570 million, which is a negative, and 440 positive, those get added to get to a 2.4 million of a annual expense. So if you look at Exhibit 2, so like I said, the reports are annual. So you have a starting value, and then the same service cost and interest cost, and this is during a year, the 1.6 million, the 947,000. That happens during a year, and then you see the difference between expected actual experience is like 3.7 million, and then the change in assumptions is 1.5, that's a positive. So if it's negative, that means it's going down. If it's positive, that means it's going up. So there's a lot of different offsetting factors. Discount rates go up, then the liability goes down, and vice versa. So you also have these are benefit payments that are estimated based on the retirees. So the 609,000 represent an estimated benefit payment. So altogether, you get a change for the year of 190,000. So there wasn't much change this year because the experience went down and the change assumptions went up, but also in the passage of time, the service cost, the annual calculation of liability was a positive. That's usually a positive unless the benefit payment is a lot greater. So that's where, out of 24 million, there was only 190,000 change from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Below that is the schedule of what's said deferred inflow outflow, and that's the amortization of both the change in experience and assumptions. So these numbers get amortized based on a formula, it's like every 13 years the way it came out, and that goes on the annual expense from the Exhibit 1. So then these amortizations get calculated from 2005 to 2029, and then it's an accumulation of the next 20-something years. So we go to Exhibit 3, we show the some trend and discount rate sensitivity. So basically, if the rate was decreased, like I said before, I'm sorry, this is the trend. So the trend is decreased, the medical costs, then the liability goes down, and that's the negative 13%. So if the trends are increased, all other assumptions kept the same, then the liability goes up 16% with a 1% increase. So instead of 7.5% for the trend, if it was 8.5%, you would experience a 16% increase. So, I mean, that's something when you think about the benefits that you're offering, what these sensitivities would, you know, what the impact would be. So the next one, the discount rate, if the discount rate went up by 1%, your liability would be going down, and the difference would be 10%, and then vice versa. If it was going down, then the interest rate would be going up 12%. And then next after that are the projected cash flows. I remember the GASB 75 doesn't calculate future employees. It just takes a snapshot of those employees that are working and have retired, you know, for the school for this fiscal year period from June 2023 or July 2023 to June 2024. And then the next exhibit after that is just exhibit 4 is just all the amortizations for experience and assumption set up by year. And it ties in, the bottoms tie into exhibit 3. So that's the end of the report. Now, does anyone have any other questions?
No one on the board? Anybody here have any questions?
Did I put anybody to sleep?
And no one virtually? I'm not seeing anybody was raising
I'm
their
on the
hands.
East Coast, remember, so.
I know, it's late for you, and yeah.
Stay warm.
Thank you so much, Mr. Albrecht. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks. We're going to move
Thank
on
you.
now and adjourn this item.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're now moving on to item 11, which is our review and discussion section, and we'll have our superintendent to introduce 11A.
Good evening, trustees and everyone who I cannot see. I appreciate you all being here. So tonight we are going to discuss our board policy review process. We had our first of the year, I believe, and definitely since I've been here, board policy committee meeting last week. And at that meeting, we discussed what process we want to use to ensure that we are keeping our board policies up to date. And I'm here to explain that we actually have quite a few that we need to be working on to keep them up to date. Last June, we approved through a global adoption process approximately 620 board policies that needed to be updated, which is quite amazing. And we also still have quite a few that we need to go through. Every quarter, there is recommended updates and some mandated updates that boards should be looking at through the California School Boards Association. And we are currently needing to look at all of the quarterly updates from December 2023 through December 2024. This means that we need to take a look at board updates that are recommended or mandated through this board policy committee and bring them to board for approval. Because we have so many that we need to look at, we would like to discuss the process that we will be using to do that, which will make sure that we're using our time well and that we're able to update those board policies in a timely manner, and also give the board an opportunity to discuss any that might, be kind of high-level ones that we really want to look at. So what we discussed at the Board Policy Committee is that we are going to actually be meeting twice a month probably for the remainder of the school year to review the policies that need to be updated. We would like to start actually with all of the ones that are mandated updates, and then look at December 2024 and kind of work backwards. We realized if we started with 2023, they may not be as up to date as the December 2024 ones. And so at the Board Policy Committee subcommittee meeting, we'll take a look at the ones that are recommended. We will review them. We will look at any changes that we might want to make. Then we would like to bring those to board for consent. If there is any policy that is on consent that the board would want to discuss, it is of course under the board's purview to pull those off of the consent agenda and to discuss them. But we feel like with this process, we will be able to get through the board policies and really update them and make sure that we are in line with what the CSBA recommendations are. I do want to just name that there are a couple of board policies that we also feel that we need to bring to board, not through consent, and that those are kind of the ones that are need a little bit more discussion, and we know that. A couple of those that we're thinking about right now are student use of technology. It is important, I think, that we also take a look at our policies related to immigration and immigration enforcement and protection of undocumented students. So tonight, I just wanted to bring this for discussion and see if there are any questions or concerns about what the Board Policy Subcommittee has recommended.
Anyone on the board have any questions or comments about the board policy process?
I mean, I get the process. I guess my main question would be knowing the volume. I don't know what's going on with my mic. Knowing the volume of policies we need to get through. How soon can we publish the list so that we can get some eyes on the ones that may require a little extra conversation, just so we can get those called out earlier rather than later, and so we can quickly get through the ones that are more obvious for us to adopt. Is this better? Is it better?
I don't think that. I mean, I'm fairly certain that I can share the recommended list. I'm going to actually lean on my executive assistant to make sure I'm saying this correctly. We can also, if we just take a look at what has been shared at the Board Policy Subcommittee meeting, which is available to anyone, anyone can take a look at the list that we need to look at. Julie, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but am I saying that correctly? I want to make sure I'm correct.
Thank you, Superintendent Stone.
Sorry.
Yes. Hi. Yes, all of the materials that the Board Policy Committee reviewed will be online available to the public, I believe, by the end of this week when we post the next agenda.
Thank you. And I know also and for some reason I don't have them in my notes right now, but about how many do we need to look at, Julie?
Trustee Inglis made a note of that as well, I think, didn't you? And it was a lot. So prioritizing is going to be key to this process. And actually on Thursday with our inaugural meeting, we did make some progress with the much more kind of standard. It was more like wordsmithing a bit. I think we worked out we'd have to do 19 per meeting if we wanted to actually nail them all within the year, which is not feasible. So our prioritizing will be very important.
But
To your question, Trustee Mahoney, if there is a policy that we want to do sooner, the way that we try to prioritize them doesn't mean that we won't bring those forward first. Like we don't need to wait to get through the 150 that are there. We can, so I think if there is one that you would like to see, you can let us know and we can bring it to the front.
And also feel free to come, anybody can come to these meetings. We're actually going to hold them now. We had the inaugural meeting on Thursday was between 1 and 3 p.m. because we wanted to get that kicked off, but we're going to be having them from 5 till 7 p.m. on the Tuesdays that we're not doing these regular meetings. So people are welcome to attend.
I found my note, 171.
I guess
Thank you.
We had previously used the CSBA resource just to make sure that we were keeping things legally in line. So I do wonder about using that. Just I'm always trying to be cognizant of the fact that board members are basically volunteers and not adding so much on, but making sure that we're staying and we can focus where we really want to keep the time and the focus, because having you guys spend so much time wordsmithing little things where the CSBA has just said, this is it. Sometimes maybe that's easier. So is that something we can consider for bringing these just all up and then giving more time to focus in on ones that are really important?
If I could respond to that. So the process is when we get CSBA recommendations, they recommend the language changes, and they also give information about why. And so I agree, yes, it makes the most sense to just take mostly the CSBA recommendations. I also neglected to share one part of this process, which is prior to going to the board policy subcommittee. These are also reviewed by our by staff to make sure that they are in line with practices that are important to Albany specifically. And then with the CSBA recommendations and with the board, with the staff recommendations, that's what goes to the policy committee. So the hope is that we won't be spending too much time doing too much wordsmithing or changing of language, because we've had staff already take a look at it and look at all the red lines.
So the process on Thursday was we went through some of the CSBA suggestions and we just ran through to make sure that it was, that we approved it and that it was Albany centric. And I think those are things that we're planning on doing in committee and then bringing just under, as Superintendent Stone said, just bringing it under the consent. But there are some policies that we actually want to create, for example. So we want to look at, like we were saying, about the technology piece or cell phone policy, for example. We have a couple of others in the works that will be more, a more robust conversation. It's not just a kind of update or editing. So I think the process will work, and we'll get through the backlog. Any more questions or comments from the board? Anybody? Public comment, either here or virtually? Not seeing anyone. Okay, thank you. We could move on now to 11B, which is also Superintendent Stone.
Wonderful. I am going to be sharing my screen for this. Oops. I apologize. I just closed what I'm trying to share. One moment, please. Okay. Now I'm going to be sharing my screen. And share. I'm hoping that you are seeing the land acknowledgement and flag discussion. All right, again, thank you, trustees. I am excited tonight to have a discussion about something that actually came up the night that I was approved as your new superintendent, which is a discussion around how we are going to acknowledge the indigenous land that we actually are sitting upon. So as you know, in October, there was a proclamation recognizing November as Native American Heritage Month. And as a part of that proclamation, there was a recognition that Albany Unified School District schools are located on the Huichin, and I apologize if I am mispronouncing any of these names. I want to make sure I get them right in the future. The Huichin territory of the Chochenyo-speaking indigenous Ohlone people, organized as the Confederated Villages of the Lishan, also referred to as the Lishan Nation. The proclamation, of course, recognized that Albany, the city of Albany, is actually currently flying a flag that shows the land of the Confederated Villages of the Lishan, and that we also, as a district, applaud the ongoing work of our staff and students and community to raise awareness of the indigenous community that is in this area. So I would like to propose that in honor of our proclamation, that we begin each board meeting, each staff meeting with a land acknowledgement, and that we would have this land acknowledgement also on our website, and that we would also fly the flag of the Confederated Lishan Nation, just as the city of Albany does, under our California flag at our school sites and at our district office. This is actually in line what the Lishan Nation has asked for us to do, not only just to acknowledge the fact that we are on the land, but actually to, as a call for all of us to recognize the actions that we need to take to repair past and present harm, and also to understand and foster understanding and inspire other meaningful action. I also want to name that we are going to continue to build our relationships with the Lishan Nation and work collaboratively to create curriculum and learning experiences for our students. So I will say that this land acknowledgement that I'm sharing right now is definitely in draft form. In fact, I know that currently we've had some staff members who've been really supportive in coordinating my connection to the Lishan Nation, and to ensure that whatever we are going to share at the beginning of meetings really is in line with what they've wanted us to share. But I would say that this is a draft of something that we could share before each meeting. And so I'm going to read it. Again, this is a draft, and we're working to ensure that it's in collaboration with the Lishan Nation. So we recognize that Albany Unified School District schools are located on the Huichin territory of the Chochenyo-speaking indigenous Ohlone people, organized as the Confederated Villages of the Lishan, also referred to as the Lishan Nation. This land was and continues to be of great importance to the Lishan Nation people. We recognize that every member of the Albany Unified School District has benefited from the use and occupation of this land since the institution's founding. We know that many of you are spread throughout the world on the land of other people and would like to take time to acknowledge that ancestral history as well. AUSD applauds the ongoing work of our staff, students, and community members to increase awareness of the Lishan Nation, its work, and the broader movement for Indigenous sovereignty, and specifically encourages district schools and teachers to commemorate this occasion with appropriate instructional materials and activities. So the other recommendation that I'd like to make tonight is that we also work with the Confederated Villages of the Lishan to create a flag that we would then, to design a flag that we would then fly, as I said, underneath the California flag at all of our schools and our district office. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anybody on the board have any comments, any discussion we want to kick off?
do. I guess, so I asked that we agendize a board discussion around like flags in our district, and I think I was more thinking that we would, I really want us to recognize all of our groups and everyone and all of those things. I was thinking that maybe more our conversation would start with like how we were gonna consider doing that, and thinking about like the fact that there are so many different groups that we want to honor and represent, that it could become challenging to do that and do it in a way that really feels like we're doing it well enough for everybody. And so what I had originally sent was a district that had a process for it and really thought about it. And I don't, like, I feel like any way I say this, it may sound insensitive, and so I'm really struggling with how to say this. I feel like we had a proclamation, they asked for it, and now we're just saying, okay, yes, let's do that. But I also feel like we have other groups that have asked and we haven't done it yet. And so I think, you know, are there some flags that we feel like we always want to fly? Are there some flags that we want to fly during the month that we're recognizing those groups, so that, you know, everybody feels that? Because I feel like if we also start saying, well, we want to do this one all the time, and then another group asks, how do we balance that and still honor everybody?
Trustee Davison, if I can just share, I think from the perspective that I'm coming from is that I absolutely agree. We want to, and my superintendent's report will go a little bit more into this as well, but we really want to honor all of our communities. And when I say all, I mean each and every single student, and who they are and what they bring to our community. I think the difference between flying many different types of flags versus this particular flag is that we actually are on the land of the Lishan, just as we are on the land of California and we are on the land of the United States. So it's more than just honoring a group or a community. It's actually honoring where we have built our district. I do think that a more of a conversation about flag flying in honor of, you know, the different months that we're celebrating or different community members is certainly something we should talk about. But I do want to just name that for this particular proposal, it truly is about the land that we're on and making sure that we are honoring that, commemorating it, and acknowledging it regularly.
So that's like the framework maybe to think about in terms of other, I don't know what a fourth one could be, but if there it would be we would consider, and I'm sorry about my mic, the land acknowledgements, the places where we are on their land are places where we should strongly consider having lands and other acknowledgements. Is that the right, like, I'm just trying to, I always want to try to have a mental model in my head so when the next one does come up, I have a way to think about that, as opposed to just dealing with them on a case-by-case basis, which I'm sympathetic to.
Yeah, we do, as you've mentioned, we have months of the year. So, for example, we have in June, we fly the Pride flag. So I'm not sure whether we've had any other groups requesting flags that we haven't been able to host, but it sounds like it's something that we want to have a wider discussion on.
Yeah, just when this was asked for in the original proclamation, I think we all felt like absolutely that's something that we wanted to do and honor, you know, just like you said, Superintendent Stone. But I think we saw that there was this nuanced depth to it. And so, you know, as the representatives, we would want to have some model that we were following so we could say, okay, this is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to have a conversation. And so I don't know if anyone else has ideas of like how we could do that or what we would want to do, or if there are, yeah.
or is that the right framework? I mean, I think that would be if we think that's not the right framework, that'd be a different conversation. Like the framework, to be transparent, like the framework resonates with me, so, but I've probably not thought as deeply about this as maybe Superintendent Stone has.
You're saying the framework being that we fly US, California, LaShawn collaboration flag, and then we put in.
The framework being that we acknowledge groups where we are on their land as a district, and that would be the framework by which we would think about these sorts of honors or recognition, be them statements at the opening of the board meeting, flag. I mean, I think we have to work through that criteria, but the idea that there is something different about the reason why, why do we fly the U.S. flag? Why do we fly the California flag? Well, those are all places where we reside, is one framework of thinking about it. And so that, which is different than other interest groups in our community that we should also recognize and what have you, but maybe in a different way because they've contributed to the community in different sorts of ways. Hopefully it was sort of
That actually really helps me because I was like I was really trying to figure out what you meant by the framework. So your framework is, yeah, we fly the flags of the land that we're on, but we honor in other ways all of our other groups and honorees and things. That's one way to think about it.
That's a mental model I put together, yeah.
Okay.
My question was more so just on the second bit about working with the LaShawn Nation to design the flag. I was just curious why we can't use the one that like the city of Albany already does, or if it really is necessary to like create a new design. I was just curious about that, but yeah.
I mean, just to answer that, I think that is a possibility. I just have not been able to have the conversation yet. I want to be sensitive, and I'm not sure how the Albany flag was created or crafted, and I want to make sure that if we're really truly doing this well, I think we need to make sure that it is a flag that resonates with the LaShawn community.
Any more questions or comments from the board? Anybody in the audience? Anybody virtually?
Are we going to we're going to bring this back, but just with your proposal, Superintendent Stone, for an approval then? And would we be further discussing how we would handle sort of the situations? And do we want to kind of come to some understanding there? Because if this is being brought back for approval, then we're going to want to have that understanding.
We can make a note of that and figure out a way of having a more expansive discussion, if that's what people would like.
Yeah, I mean, I think, not to put words in your mouth, but like, I think like, okay, so we know there's going to be another set of conversations that we need to have around other parts of our community, and what's the framework from which we want to kind of recognize and acknowledge those other different groups in our community, and what's that sort of standardized framework, assuming this is the framework we're going to adapt here. So if we adapt this year, great, fine, check, but we're going to have that next conversation soon thereafter, so maybe that's a future board topic.
Yeah, I just, we've been in the practice of flying one flag at one time of year in connection with a proclamation recognition, and so I think, yeah.
And maybe that continues, but like, let's write it down or
well, I guess I wonder, do we need to have, like, can we not, this is the agendized time to do this. Can we come up with maybe 2 different frameworks and then we say we're gonna talk about those further, or do we want to talk to community members and figure out what like people would want, like what are the next steps? Because if we just say we're bringing this back at a future board meeting, we're going to be doing the same thing again at a future board meeting.
I think it would make sense. I am going to be meeting with affinity group leaders. I'd like to do a little bit more of a conversation with affinity groups to see just kind of overall what their thoughts are about how we want to honor our different community members. And I think I do want to note that I am aware that in June, we have flown the pride flag, but I think where it came, and maybe not others each month, but I think where that came from is that we wanted to do something in June that honors, and our students are in school in the month of June or for a very short period of time. Whereas with other months, we're able to do more in-school activities to commemorate the different months. But I think that to your point, we have to have some kind of a, what are we doing for the different months to encourage and support communities and to support the learning for our students, and what does that look like? So I think me being able to have some conversations with the affinity groups would be really helpful as we move forward in this discussion. And I believe that I have at least 1 or 2 meetings set up in February, so I can bring this back to board after I've had those meetings, and at that time we can have a discussion and maybe an action around it.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think there's we don't have to do it right away, but I think that if we know that there's that time being had, and you'll come back with some ideas, and then we can go from there. That sounds fine to me.
That sounds good. Anyone else? Any other comments? No, seeing none. Okay, so we're going to adjourn this item now and move on to item 12, staff reports. We've already done 12A, so we're now going to move to 12B, the security update at the Albany Middle School, and going to have Director Jaffe for this portion of the meeting.
Thank you, Board of Trustees. I'm Scott Jaffe, Director of Maintenance and Operations. I haven't seen all of you before, but it's nice to see you. Thanks. So I was asked to give a very brief report on some responses to some concerns of security and safety at Albany Middle School. I met with Superintendent Stone and Interim CBO Thomas, and at that meeting, we identified 2 areas for improvement. The first being the main gate at Albany Middle School. Despite the fact that the campus perimeter has secure gates and fences, the main gate is left open throughout the day, and that allows unchecked visitors to enter the campus. The second area was at AMS Annex campus across the street. The gate is able to be left open. It's signed, please close this gate, but it sometimes inadvertently gets left open, also allowing for uninvited visitors. So to remedy these concerns, it was decided that at the middle school proper, at the main campus, we would build a second fence and gate about 20 feet interior of the existing gate, and that could be locked from the outside but have panic bars from the inside so that there could be egress. And that would direct any visitor, it would force any visitor to go into the office where they can be identified, logged in, given a visitor badge. And then the way that is configured, they can then exit through a different door into the main campus. So that's what I'm working on there. And then at the annex, it's a simple matter of putting a closer on the gate so that it closes automatically after somebody exits. And the progress that has happened on those fronts, for the new fence at the middle school, I reached out to 5 fence vendors for quotes. I got responses from 3 of them. 2 so far have made site visits and are preparing proposals. The 3rd I'm going to see tomorrow. And then once I have those proposals and have had a chance to review them with CBO Thomas, I would bring them to the board, bring one of those to the board for approval. And then when the contract is awarded, they would go into shop drawings because it is a custom size for that gate. The shop drawings would be approved, fabrication would begin. And that process would take, I'm averaging 2 to 3 months. And then once it's fabricated, installation, right now, we're targeting June, or as early as we can in the summer. It could possibly happen sooner because I think it's the kind of thing that we could do in a weekend once it's fabricated. But if we can't do it sooner, certainly a summer project. And then for the annex gate, actually I already have a quote. The part was in stock. It's getting installed tomorrow. So that's happening right away. So those are the things from the meeting. I also just wanted to mention that through a conversation with Principal Mapes, I've also installed a privacy screen along the chain link fence that borders the Albany Greenway, which prevents unwanted people.
I noticed that on my run this morning.
Oh, you saw it this morning? Yeah.
I'm one of the unwanted or something, I don't know, yes, but I noticed it.
Yeah, it's a good screen. It provides a lot of privacy. We're doing this similar thing at Marin Elementary as well. So any questions on that?
I have a question. What's going to happen in between classes? The kids coming from the annex back, is somebody going to be there opening that between each class?
Yeah, we talked about that. The security officer at the campus is going to person that gate at those transition times when students go back and forth between campus.
And as far as the security concerns in the main building near to the gym, the door that's often open, is there now more vigilance surrounding, in the meantime, before this is implemented? Are we just kind of upping people's awareness of making sure that doors, et cetera, are kept closed?
Yes, there's been an effort, any door that's onto the street, keeping those closed.
Right.
And then also there's 2 security personnel there that are keeping an eye on the front gate.
Great, so everyone should feel confident that we are on top of it, and I appreciate your attention to this and how quickly you're moving it forward. Thank you. Any other questions or comments about this?
While you're here, Director Jaffe, I just have to thank you for the Cornell water fountain.
Oh.
It's really beautiful, and I wanted to shed a tear. I'm so grateful that is in and it's there, so
You're welcome. I heard you mention that at the last meeting. I'm glad that we were able to do that.
You're here, and I can thank you.
I thought the presentation this morning from the Cornell students was going to be about the water fountain, actually.
I mean, our future president, who had the humorous speech, was a big reason, but yeah.
Okay,
Great.
You're welcome. Thank you.
No other public comment from anyone? Nobody online? Okay, great. Thank you so much. We'll adjourn this item, and we will now move on to 12C, which is our Department of Special Education update with Dr. Biggs.
Good evening, Board Trustees. Superintendent Stone, thanks so much for having me here this evening. We'll be putting the presentation up on the screen here in a second.
Sorry.
So it's been a while since I've been up here to be able to give a little bit of an update about special education. So I'm really excited to be here this evening. And I think what's really great about being here is that we have so many new faces on the board. And I think many of you that know me, I'm very passionate about special education. And I really like to uplift and help build the capacity of knowledge for what special education is within our community. And I think as board members, it's really important to know. And so we're going to go slow and steady to really understand special education. And we're not going to get through everything this evening, but I was really hoping to do a little bit of overview about our department, some basic principles about our pre-referral structures, and a little bit of an overview about the special education process, and then also get into some nuances of things that are happening in our department that have implications for our students and our district at large. So if you'd like to go to the next slide. And so, of course, I always like to center ourselves on our district mission, which we already discussed this evening, and some of the things that really speak to me as a special educator about our district mission is about really supporting our students towards their potential and supporting our students with addressing their individual needs. It's just so interconnected with special education. And so we'll get more through that and understand more about how that interconnection in special education and the work that we do. Next slide. And so I mentioned what we'll be going over, and one of the things I really want to show is this icon right here. This icon is an infographic about a multi-tier system support. We've discussed MTSS, multi-tier systems support in the district. It's been part of our district, areas of focus over this years, and we're really working to support students. And we'll see today how it's interrelated and is a part of special education, and actually special education is part of the multi-tier systems support. Next slide, please. I think when we're thinking about this, what I love about it is we're collecting information about students, data-based decision-making, progress monitoring. We're screening students. We're coming back. It's that cycle of continuous improvement that we're doing within general education. We're also doing in special education. And this is our department's kind of goal. Our goal is to support students with learning differences so they can benefit from school in adherence and in accordance with, what we'll learn in a little bit, the federal legislation of IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And our big charge is to support these students with learning differences so that we can build their independence and being able to support them in the least restrictive environment. Terminology, which may, click with some of us, but also we'll learn a little bit more later tonight. Next slide, please. So before getting into the nuances of special education, I also just want to recognize the amazing department that we have of special education here in Albany Unified School District. We have our special education office, and these are all the individuals that I supervise, from technicians to program specialists to our behavior analyst, assistive technology specialist, our amazing transportation coordinator, and adaptive physical education teacher. Next slide. And then we have all the individuals that are out in the field doing all the great work with our students, from our school psychologist, occupational therapist, speech pathologist, and our workability coordinator. And then I also oversee 2 special education teachers that are at either ends of our continuum of special education, our preschool teacher, who's Karen Bonini, as well as our adult transition teacher, Ashley Sachs. Next slide. And then we have the amazing teachers throughout the whole district. And so I just wanted to really just, pay tribute to them and all the great work that they're doing. We have, a great number of staff that have a lot of work. They have the opportunity to support our students with learning differences. And it's not just instruction, it's the compliance, the procedural compliance, and managing the IEP and doing case management. And we'll see that, our student needs are so diverse, and with our staff, we do our best to support them within the programs that we have. And we're not perfect, but we really strive towards that perfection. In addition to the individuals listed here, we also have over 40 paraeducators, our instructional assistants that are in the classroom across our 2 different programs that we have. And they are in the trenches supporting our students, doing push-in support and really helping them towards building independence, and trying to fade that support so they can be in the classroom by themselves without having an adult assistance, because it's a level of restriction. I also just, when we're here, I want to really highlight that, this year and every year in special education, hiring for special education teachers for our vacancies is difficult. The shortage in California is real, not just in special education, just staffing in general, but these hard to fill positions, really difficult. Right now, we're mostly, I'd say, staffed, which is, it's great. We just hired a special education teacher who's going to be at the middle school filling a vacancy, which is just great. And we only have a few contractors right now, which I'm really excited about, so that we can really work for next year in trying to bring in district hires. So we still have a lot of work to go, but right now we're doing really well with, actually, I think only having 1.5 special education teachers that are contractors, and a speech language pathologist and a speech language pathologist assistants that are contractors as well. So, In addition to the staffing, we've also had some amazing glows. All of our programs and our teachers are doing phenomenal. But I have to really just speak out about our preschool program, and I want to bring this to the community because over the years we've had a really difficult time in our preschool class setting because of staffing. And last year, our TSA and special assignment, Karen Benini, said to me that when she's going to go back to the classroom, she wanted preschool. And I said, why? She's like, that's where I can create the most impact for supporting students and families early on in the special education and education experience. And she's doing a phenomenal job working with families and her paraeducator and the staff at ACC to supporting our students. And what we have, it's interesting. We have students that are referred, and we have students either from families or from the regional center, which is a state-run agency for supporting individuals with disabilities. And it ebbs and flows. Right now we have about 5 students, but by the end of the year we could have 10. We really just don't know. But she's doing a phenomenal job and really trying to flex the inclusive practices, and having someone that's on site and the support of our director of the ACC program, Josh Reed, has been really phenomenal, and it's a good relationship. Additionally, we have on the other end our adult transition program. I mean, we've seen our students, we've seen our teacher, and have seen the highlights of how great our community-based instruction is going for our young adults with learning differences and being able to build the life skills to be more independent. And so I'm really excited about the evolution of this program that is really a testament to Ashley Sachs. We have another program that has started this year. It's a resource program. It's a mild moderate program at our high school for supporting students with school refusal and more internalized issues. And we've kind of revitalized this. We did this in the past. And right now our teacher, Barbara Amino's spearheading it. And hopefully I'll be able to come back in the future to tell about how the outcomes have been. But from just qualitative feedback from Ms. Amino, as well as a program specialist and Darren McNally, is that it's been pretty productive to have this program for our students that have been really struggling with coming to school. So next slide, please. So we're getting into special education. I'm not going to go through every slide because you guys have hopefully read this, and if not, you have it a nice 41-page presentation. You can go back and read it again. And I'm always available for questions. You can always email me. Real big, special education is not a place. This is a service for our students. We're really articulating a blueprint through developing an IEP to help students benefit from school and in the vein of the least restrictive environment. We really want to make sure that whenever we're thinking about special education, we have exclusionary criteria. We don't want to over-identify students or misidentify students that their disabilities may be due primarily not to a disability, but English language acquisition, socioeconomic status, and school attendance. And so we really want to be mindful of it. And then also, we want to make sure that this is not something for short-term temporary disabilities. This is something for a student that actually meets ed code criteria for a student with a disability. So, that's not temporary in nature. There's other support mechanisms within our school systems for that, such as Section 504. Next slide, please. So I love this infographic. I put it up here because, I look at it and it's like my eye, it's my lens. And I want the community, I want the board to really look at this and be able to see how complex it is as a special educator. And thinking about the dynamic structure of a student, we're thinking about their learning profile in the context of their peers, the different resources we have along the continuum of supportive services, the type of instruction that we're giving students, and the different accommodations and modifications. It is a complex and great thing that we have, but when I think about all of our IEP team members that are sitting down and thinking about how we're supporting this this student, I think about this lens, and I think about all the different complexities that come with supporting a student with unique circumstances. Next slide, please. Is that the next slide? Oh, okay, so MTSS, and so, you know, we've heard about MTSS before, but really this is about the preventative proactive support framework that we have within the district to be able to identify students and support them before getting to a place such as moving towards an IEP or making a referral. So this is where we really get to review data, we get to talk about how we can put different programs and interventions in place for students to hopefully be able to catch them so that they're not struggling and not needing to move into a more restrictive environment or a more restrictive tier. And so we have different types of internal structures that we have within MTSS, such as our coordination of service team, student success team, and then we also have special education. So I wanted to just name MTSS framework for a second, and then next slide. Before getting into some of the pre-referral structures, I also wanted to just, you know, bring to the attention about least restrictive environment. So when we think about our MTSS model, we're really thinking about that blue universal level of supporting students in general education. That's the goal for all of our students. We want all of our students to be able to access. That's where students zone of proximal development, the ability for them to be able to learn independently is where they're at. And when you go up a little bit more, they may need a little bit more supports and structures. And in special education, we have the same lens of restriction, and that gets into thinking about accommodations, modifications, instructional assistance in the classroom, all the way up to maybe a change in placement into a non-public school or a residential facility. But as you see, as we have, you know, the arrow is going up, you know, we think about needs and we support students where they're at, but we also want to bring them back down. And that's building independence, and that falls into that continuous cycle of improvement of thinking about how we're supporting students being able to be more independent in the least restrictive environment. Next slide. And so coordination of service team, this is where our teachers, our administrators, our specialists are working to kind of grapple with a student that may be struggling in the classroom, providing different recommendations and supports to teachers, whether that's, you know, instructional methodology, whether that's, you know, thinking about behavioral, you know, incentive systems for students, and trying to do something preventative for a student before it gets to a place where they're at risk and really struggling in the classroom. And then next slide. We have a more formalized process that we bring in stakeholders, the parents, the teacher, other specialists, and we're really brainstorming what are the students' strengths, how do we leverage those strengths, and then also talking about those areas of difficulty and putting in goal-oriented, measurable supports for a student, and then coming back to see how they're making progress, with the hope that they are making progress. And if they're not, then there's going to be, you know, potential, you know, decisions after fine-tuning things to making a referral for special education. But this is a really great support structure that we have because we want to catch students before they get to a place that it's harder to get back on track. Next slide, please. Now, this is a great idea. This is what, and I wanted to put this up here because it's nothing that we've really published. It's nothing that we're really have within the district, but it's where we're working towards. And it really is just to give you guys a sense of the complexities it takes for our district and our staff to really think through supporting students through a MTSS model, through cost and SST. It's pretty intricate, and really thinking through and knowing that we are thinking about struggling students and wanting the students to be able to be successful in that least restrictive environment, the general education setting. Next slide. Guiding principles we're going to go over, and we'll just speak a little bit about it. I think many of us know what they are, but I like to really just have that solid foundation as a collective. So next slide. So this is the IDEA. This is our federal legislation that really protects students with learning differences, or as they refer to it, as students with disabilities, and being able to ensure that students have a free and appropriate education. Okay. And I think it's really important to, recognize here some of it, it talks about being able to support students towards pre-employment and also independent living. This independence piece is such a critical component because what we'll see is when we're looking at areas of difficulty, it really is about building those compensatory strategies. And so, you know, IDEA really outlines this, and it really outlines the rights for parents, which is critical because our parents need to be part of the process and understanding of our students. They understand our students from a completely different lens that help us. It leverages us in the school setting to support students towards that independence. We can go to the next slide. Next slide is Child Find. So, you know, Child Find is our duty for districts to, you know, identify if there's a reasonable suspicion of a student with a disability, we have a duty to assess. One thing I like about our MTSS framework, the cost SST system, is it really speaks to Child Find. It helps us locate those students. And, you know, parents, you know, families can, you know, referral for special education. I always still recommend, hey, you refer, let's still go through an SST process. Let's really think through some of this because we don't want to over-assess. We also don't want to under-assess. And our MTSS framework with SSTs really helps us come together, be at a table and talk through the areas of strengths, the areas of difficulty, and hopefully put in some supports to see how a student responds before getting to that assessment process. Because it's a big process, taking a student out, doing direct assessments. So we'll learn about that here in a little bit. Next slide, please.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
If a student has an SST but doesn't end up with an IEP, how long does that team follow that student? Is it a one?
So that's,
is that how it works?
So that's where some of the work in the district still needs to happen as far as creating alignment, as far as our structure of, you know, time between intervention implementation, progress monitoring, and then if the student's not making progress, coming back to the table for an SST meeting. So typically, you know, I think, you know, good practices, we implement interventions about 6 to 8 weeks. If a student's not making progress, what you really want to do is come back to the table and you want to finesse, you want to like fine tune some of the interventions that we put in place to see if the student would respond differently and then come back. And so, I mean, there isn't any, you know, right now, hard given, you know, timeline, but typically I'd say 6 to 8 weeks, you come back. And if a student's not progressing after a couple of SST meetings, I'd say we should really assess, get more information about the student. LRE, least restrictive environment, this is where we want our students to be with their same age peers to the maximum extent possible. It is, and it's different for every student based on their unique circumstances. And so we have students who the least restrictive environment is general education with accommodations alone and maybe some consult services. And we have other students that necessitate a higher level of support, such as a non-public school. But with that, you know, objective of always bringing the supports in place so that they can come down the levels of restriction because we want them to be more independent and being more successful. And so there's an array of placement, and we'll see different infographics about our continuums of support a little bit later. Next slide, please. Free and appropriate education, and that's like the hallmark of our, you know, IDEA. It's, you know, we build these IEPs through the collection of data, through us, you know, and really trying to identify the students' areas of growth where we align it with accommodations and services, and then we offer a IEP to a family, which is FAPE. And the biggest thing is it's at no cost to parents, because, you know, the beauty of IDEA is really providing that support structure for students with learning differences so that they can have access and benefit from their schooling. We can go to the next slide. And this is the IEP, you know, the individual education plan. I'm sorry, I just love it because I'm thinking about being at an IEP meeting with a 16-year-old student, and they get to be at the IEP meeting at that time, and they're always being able to see the I in the IEP at the table is always amazing. But the IEP is really it's the storybook, it's the blueprint for our student, where we've collected the information from doing assessments. We put it in what we call present levels, and we've identified these areas of strengths which we can leverage to support a student, but we've also really been able to identify those areas of growth where we then put them into goals which are measurable, and then we think about, well, how are we going to make progress on these goals? And that is all done through different accommodations, modifications, supplemental supports, and services. Next slide, please. Education benefit, this is FAPE and LRE, and it's the whole piece about how does a student, well, one, we're really developing highly ambitious goals based on a student's unique circumstances, and how are we making sure that students are making progress on those goals? And when students are making progress on those goals, that's ed benefit. And when I think about progress on those goals, I'm thinking about that movement towards independence. Because those goals are really that piece of showing us how we're supporting students that are struggling, that have learning differences, to be more independent without the support structures of a special education classroom, of an instructional assistant, and be more independent. We can go to the next slide, please. So real brief, there's four main pillars of the special education process. Referral for assessment, assessment to determine eligibility, development of an IEP, and every year we do an IEP review. And there's actually a fifth process. It's called the reevaluation. Within 3 years, we reevaluate a student to determine if they're still eligible for special education. But this is the four main tenets, just to give you an idea. We can go to the next slide. Can you go back one more slide for me, please? We have 13 eligibility criteria in special education. You'll see some of the terminology on here, and you're like, wow, this looks so familiar. And there's a lot of similarities when we think about like the medical model. But there's also a lot of differences. We are governed by ed code. And so, when I think about a student that may have a specific learning disability, the threshold may be completely different than in the medical model. And that can sometimes be hard to understand. It can be hard for parents to really understand that as well. But we operate under ed code for the criteria for special education eligibility. We can go to the next slide. And meeting the criteria of one of the 13 eligibility categories is only a part of the process. There's really a three-part test. Prong 1, eligibility criteria of one of the 13 eligibilities. Prong 2, evidence that that disability adversely affects their educational performance. Because you can meet eligibility for a student with autism. You can meet eligibility for a student that is found eligible for a learning disability, but if it's not adversely affecting their educational performance, then they're not eligible for special education. There's other support structures in place to help them have that floor of access and opportunity, but not special education. And then the third piece is, do they require specialized instruction? And this is above and beyond general education supports and accommodations. Next slide. So this is just to give you a sense of when I talk about assessment, when I think about driving the understanding about students' needs, we use a variety of different data points. Assessment is the collection of data. And we get to do that at the initial IEP, we get to do that at the reevaluation, but we also do it through different non-standardized measures throughout the IEP period that's really focused on that student's progress on goals, which is really important. We can go to the next slide. Can you go back one more slide? Thank you. This is just a quick overview. You get to see the IEP cornerstones. It's linear and cyclical. This is the whole piece of thinking about the MTSS structure and thinking about collecting that data, progress monitoring, coming back and making those changes, and seeing how this is the development of a student's IEP. Next slide, please. And this is just more or less the same thing, the calculation of ed benefit. If things aren't going right, we come back to the table. So to earlier about SSTs and making that referral for special education, I discussed that piece of coming back to the table and being able to fine-tune things. We do the same thing in special education, and we look at our goals. If a student's not making progress, let's come back and let's figure something different out for the student. We may change the method, the delivery of service, the intensity, the duration, so that we can better have that student make adequate progress on their goals. That's our end mark, is to have them make progress on their goals, so they can be more independent. Next slide, please. So we're getting back now into our Department of Special Education here in the district. We run really two main programs. We run a mild moderate program for students with learning differences that are still working towards Common Core standards and going to be receiving a high school diploma. We also operate a mod severe program, or what we refer to now as an extensive support needs program for students who are working on more life skills and standards aligned curriculum. And you'll see the sequence of what we have. And I made an error on here, so please take note of it. And our RSP is resource program. We actually, for Ocean View, Cornell, and Marin, it's not K through 5, it's TK through 5. I apologize. There's a couple errors that I'll point out today, and that was one of them. But you can see our support that we have throughout the district as far as those programs. There's other type of programs that we don't have, like a mild moderate support needs class, which is a more sheltered program for students that are really struggling with behaviors but have the cognitive skills and abilities to access the general education Common Core standards. And we also don't have a counseling enrich class that really has the therapeutic behavioral supports embedded for supporting some of our students. But over the years since I've been here, these are the programs that we've had, and our students, we fit them in those programs. And you'll see it doesn't work for all of our students, since we have a large number of our students that move into non-public schools. So, next slide. This is a snapshot of our SELPA, and this is our data from last year. We have to do a personnel data report to the state, and this isn't perfect. There's been some changes within the state reporting, and it's also not perfect because we don't understand the complexities of each individual district and their different contracts that they have with their unions. But you can get a snapshot and get a little bit of a comparison about our enrollment, our students with disabilities, that's SWD, and then our different staff that we have. We can go to the next slide. This is a breakdown of our students. We currently have 300. You don't have that slide?
We're missing that last slide, but we'll.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. All right. Okay. Oh.
I was going back and forth between slides as well, so okay,
all right.
It's all good.
We currently have 383 students with disabilities in the district. This is, I've been in here since 2010. I don't remember having so many students with disabilities. I think last year we had 360, the year before we had 320. We're increasing our students with disabilities. But this gives you a at the moment snapshot of our students in the district and their eligibility and the kind of distribution of eligibility categories that we have. Large number of students with specific speech language impairment, specific learning disability, autism, and other health impairment. So it's pretty interesting to see, and also kind of, for me, seeing some of the trends over the years with regards to our students, because our students with autism have definitely increased over the years. We're seeing many more students with autism spectrum and at a younger age. We can go to the next slide, please. Okay. What was that? Okay, perfect. So this is just, I wanted to give everyone a snapshot. We talked about like referrals for assessment. This kind of shows just a distribution over the years of referrals for special education assessment, and it also breaks down number of referrals and by the referral source, and if the student was found eligible, and the percentage of the total of that referral source of the total percentage of students that were assessed that year. So if we just look at this past year of 23-24, 113 students that were evaluated, and that's about 3.16% of our students are within the district. Large percent of our referral source, and that's consistent actually for the past 3 years, has been parent referrals. Of the parent referrals, we had 70 parent referrals last year. 64% were found eligible, that's a great referral. But what is it? 36% was 36. Thank you very much. I'm not the best mathematician. So yeah, we're not found eligible. And then we get into teachers, SST, staff, and I wanted to just focus on those because it's really, part of this is a coding thing. Whenever we get referrals, it says who is the referral person, and it may say a teacher, but it was actually SST. So this isn't perfect either, but I just think about district individuals making referrals. And it's interesting to see, it's been pretty consistent over time with district staff. What we would like to see is that we increase the number, that we reduce the number of referrals through SSTs because we're catching students and supporting them first, and that the referrals that are coming in are actually going to be found eligible because we have more data to substantiate. And then that could be a pediatrician, it could be anyone, because anyone can make a referral for special education assessment. Next slide. So, we've talked a lot about levels of restriction. I've mentioned a little bit about non-public schools and residential facilities. Within our district programs, our 2 programs, the mild, moderate, and mild, severe programs, when students' needs we're not able to meet their needs within the school setting, we have to think about other types of programs. And that's non-public schools, which can also include residentials. And this is a snapshot from 2018 to present day of our students that have been placed and are currently placed in non-public schools and residentials. In addition, we also we work with the North Region SELPA, which is our special education local plan area, and which are 5 districts: Alameda, Emeryville, Piedmont, Berkeley, and Albany, to really be able to hopefully, instead of going to a non-public school, we consider SELPA placements. It's been, we've had a student, as you can see, in a SELPA placement for a few years, which was great, and we had another one that was out of SELPA, which was great, but it is sometimes hard to be able to place students within the SELPA for a variety of reasons. Similar to the same with us, they're dealing with staffing and their programs are filled. So we currently have 13 students that are in non-public schools and residential facilities through their IEP. And I look at this spread, and sometimes, like last year, we only had 8 students, but the year before, 11. I mean, it's really, I would say this is the norm right now, and it's hard to even predict when a student's going to be placed in a non-public school.
I was going to say, we're out of time for the item, so I just want to give you a heads up, just so I know we have a few more pages left, so I don't want to miss any of that.
Yeah. Can you give me 2 more minutes?
Yeah, go ahead, Vonnie.
Can we, I move that I guess, we don't have times on this. We have in our understanding that we have like about 30 minutes. Do we need to extend, or can we just keep going? Just keep going.
We don't have time.
All right, go for it.
So let's go to the next slide, because this is just, yeah. So let's go, because this is just a distribution. You can look at it later. You'll see the students with disabilities that were placed in non-public schools, and their eligibility categories, and some of the things that you don't see on there. But a lot of the students in non-public schools emotionally. A lot of the students. Can you go back 2 slides, Kim? Right there. Oh, one more. One more. So. We're going to go one more. There we go. So if you just look at last year, you can see our distribution of students that are placed at non-public schools and their eligibility categories. So 23-24, which is the second row from the bottom, we had 2 students that with the eligibility category of emotional disturbance, one with the eligibility of autism, one with the eligibility of other health impairment. That's only accounting for non-public schools, not residentials. When we go to the column for non-public schools residentials, we had 4 students. It doesn't show you the eligibility category, but I did research, emotional disturbance, other health impairment. And we have 2, and some had a secondary of autism as well. So, next slide. This is just another, example of the continuum of support along the levels of restriction within special education that you have there for your resources. We can go to the next slide. I also wanted to bring this up as just the cost structure. Do you have this slide?
We do. It has a slightly different number on it than.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one thing, I put the number here for our non-public schools, residential treatment centers, as well as alternative placements to kind of show where the actuals were for the 23-24 school year. Now, you have to understand when we have a moving target of students that may be moving down levels of restriction, and so the projections that we have for this year may not be the actuals at the end of the year if we're able to bring students back home, because we've budgeted based on what the cost was going to be for a non-public school. But you can see that it is a big cost to the district.
Sorry, residential treatment centre number that you have here for 24-25 is 173 million plus. No, 173,000, sorry. And then we have 310,226 on our slide. The same category.
Can you show me?
Yeah.
Can you put that back? Can you put that
That was
back?
my comment, is we had a slightly different number.
Yeah. So I don't know when this was posted, but there was conversation about if we were putting in a student with residential placement got approved today.
We appreciate how quickly you updated the numbers.
And I just want to name that since it appears that we've updated it since it got posted, we'll make sure that we post the updated slide deck to our website and to our agenda.
Thank you. So if we go to the next slide, though, this next slide is the funding sources for special education. Do you have that? Oh, technical difficulties?
Yeah, Wi-Fi's been terrible today.
Are you able to see the?
I have it on my laptop.
You have it on?
Yeah. We've got breakdown of special ed funding and contributions. That's what we're looking at.
Yeah, so
yeah.
That's what she has right here is the slideshow. Yeah. So I think we can move this along, and I think everyone has it within the backup as well as you can review it. There's really three main buckets of funding sources that we get with a little pail on the side as well for 4 streams. We get a block grant, special education preschool, special education mental health, and then also our workability program. And you can just see the federal, the state, and the local funding streams that we get, and the contribution for those each and individual of those buckets with a summary down below, seeing that the total contribution from the general fund is more than 50%. I think is around 64% of the general fund covering special education. It'd be great if the state and the federal and local would be able to fund special education 100%, but that's just not the reality where we're at, and being able for our community and the board to be able to see the impact on the general fund contribution.
Can you just repeat that general fund part again? That's in addition to the total contribution we're seeing here?
That's the total contribution from the general fund.
We're contributing $6.7 million from the general fund.
To special education.
Okay. It's okay. Total federal plus total state plus total local plus total contribution.
No.
I got confused on this too. It's total federal plus total state plus total local, but we spend total contribution. Is that right?
That's correct.
So the difference between total contribution and the sum of the other 3 is what we put in.
Is the gap.
Okay, got it. Got to do some math.
Is that right? That's what I internalized, but I could be completely wrong.
So the special education funding, we get $4 million. The general education contribution is about $6.7 million.
So
for a total.
$2.7 million general fund contribution.
Yes, please. Yeah.
So the total cost of special education is these 4 numbers combined. So our program is roughly $10 million. We fund that through about $800,000 of federal, $3.3 million of state, a little bit of local, which is local property taxes, and then in addition to all of that, we contribute $6.7 million.
So $6.7 million out of the general fund goes into special ed
I don't think it's 8 million.
1.8.
1.8, yes.
So out of this 10 million,
18%.
18% is going straight out of Albany to somebody else.
That's the current budget, as I think
Which
Dr. Bidds indicated.
leads to my question.
That's the outside number. Hopefully it'll be less than that when we close, but yes.
And I think the thing is, some of our students' needs necessities.
For sure.
There also needs to be examined, in my opinion, about some of the continuum of support services we offer within the district.
I mean, that was going to be sort of my question, which is like, obviously there's some that we need to take those are the actions, but I was just going to ask you, like, do we have a sense of what it takes to have some fewer of those sort of placements?
Yeah.
That bring maybe lowering costs for us, but also puts them in Albany, like a least restrictive environment, closer to the least restrictive environment of their peers and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think, we have a general sense of, our student needs and being able to think about different program design of being able to expand out the continuous support. Because as you just saw, just based on eligibility categories alone, we have a high number of students with autism and emotional disturbance and other health impairments that are being, placed in these non-public schools and residential facilities. And so thinking about that cycle of continuous improvement and being able to see this as a data point, how do we then think through, how do we not have students have to go to that level of restriction? Because how great would it be if we were able to provide a support program for a student within the district that may be more restrictive, but they're still within their community? And that to me is a really big piece, because part of what we're doing when we're with our students in residentials and non-public schools is trying to help build their independence so they can be part of our community, and it's hard when they're not within Albany. So I think it'd be great to look at, what can we do to expand our continuous support programs within the district so that we don't have to think about, or we can try having a student within the district before getting to that next step of a higher level of restriction.
How does the 18% or the 1.8 million,
So sorry.
how does that compare to other districts of our size?
I'll have to, let me talk to my SELPA directors, the directors within the SELPA, to get an idea, and I can get back to you on that.
Good question, though.
Really good question.
Do you think that, we'll let you finish.
Last thing is I just wanted to bring to light, part of what we, within special education, there's accountability supports and different indicators from the state. This past year, we've been in a compliance improvement monitoring, tier 2 for being disproportionate for students with disabilities that are African American, that are specific learning disabled. And so with specific learning disability. And so what we're tasked with doing is being able to really look at what are the root causes for this disproportionate number of students that are African American or Black that are being identified as specific learning disability, and then working to kind of build to break down the barriers and have it so that we're not disproportionate. And you can see here there was a risk ratio of 3%. We were a small percentage more, 3.11 versus a 3% risk ratio. So really, I think it could just be one student. Challenge is, I've had maybe 2 or 3 students that have moved into the district. And so it's like, how do we examine our practices whenever a student comes in that has a disability and maybe doing our own assessments and figuring out, is specific learning disability actually correct? Because there's some districts that may have a different approach to it. And then also looking at a student, that may have 2 different disabilities. Is it learning disability or is it this other disability that's primary? And so we're doing a lot of work with this. And we will know in February where we're at, to give us a sense of the work that we need to do over 6 months, because what we don't want to, we want to bring this number down to 3% or below, because what we don't want to do is get to a place of significant disproportionality. Can you go to the next slide? And when we get to what the state refers to as SIGDIS, significantly disproportionate, there's much more accountability measures from the state. One of them being having 15% of the special education revenue being mandated to address this. Well, you guys just saw the buckets and the revenue and the contribution for general fund. So really, it's just an additional 15% that we're going to have to be able to work on. So my hope is that we're really investing and investigating our multi-tier systems of support, our assessment practices for supporting students, so that we're not over-identifying students with disabilities that are African American or Black with the eligibility category of specific learning disability. That's the end of, we can go to the next slide, thank you.
Thank you. You said you were passionate about this, and you can really tell that you are, and I feel like we need more time on this, because it was really, that was so enlightening, but I sort of feel like we could have dug deeper with more time, but thank you so much for everything. Anybody have any more questions or comments? Bonnie, you mentioned hitting in with numbers questions.
Saudi and I are doing math over here. We're sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay.
First of all, I want to thank you for being so thorough with all of these details and breaking down the process a little bit more. And it was really interesting to see where the referrals come from and track that process with you. And I really appreciate seeing that. It's also really helpful to see these numbers kind of as they've moved annually. And I apologize for kind of jumping on that. Just when we see those big numbers and we think about it, it's always like, whoa, how do we rationalize that? Also really helpful just to see the different, like, of those 13 categories that you were talking about, how many students fit into each, and how, you know, we are having to support so many more students in certain categories right now, and those do take robust services. But do you have any vision of how we could, like, I don't know, if you had like a 5-year plan and you said, what could we do to keep up with this changing trend? And maybe not, I mean, we were just doing the math, and it looks like it's like $194,000 per kid in a non-public school placement. I'm thinking, if we had $200,000 per kid that we somehow kept some of that in AUSD, what could we do?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of visions of what we can do to support our students. I think it's a really great question, and I think about our students have changed over the years in special education, as we're seeing. And we talk a lot about universal design of learning. We talk a lot about being able to pivot our strategies for instruction to support different learners. And I think about our special education programs have been stagnant for the past so many years of really just trying to fit students into a specific model. And I think what we're seeing is we need to really look at our student needs in special education and build out programs to better support them, so that we aren't thinking about more restriction, that we're keeping our students within our school system to the maximum extent possible with their same age peers, and building that independence. And so personally, I'd like to be able to have more of a development of programs within the district. I think that, you know, seeing that there will be hopefully cost savings, they'll be generating more staffing within the district, and it's going to be doing right for our students. It's something that, I wish that we could do right now. It's my program specialists do an amazing job with the maintenance of our programs and supporting our teachers and supporting our families. It's hard to be able to do program development. And it's really difficult to be able to say, we are going to be putting these programs into place. This is the staffing that's going to be part of it. And we're also trying to bring students back home. And so, to me, I think I'd like to be able to develop programs, and I do need support with that.
Anyone else? Any more questions? No. Okay, let's adjourn this. Oh, public comment, sorry. I know, thank you for the reminder. Oh, we do as well.
Hey, they're jumping on this one.
We are, thank you. Ooh.
Slide about special education staffing, and I was noticing that Berkeley was about at 1 special education teacher to 100 students, according to that slide. Piedmont was at 1 to 110, Alameda 1 to 105, Emeryville 1 to 100, and we were at 1 special education teacher to 200 students, according to that slide.
That's what I received from our state reports.
Oh, and then similarly on paras, we were at 1 to 92, Piedmont was 1 to 48, 1 to 79 for Berkeley. Like,
Student with disabilities or total enrollment?
it said SY enrollment unduplicated. I was just curious, like, what goes into that difference?
So I think one of the things that we want to look at is the students with disabilities and the special education teachers.
Sure.
Because that will give you a better understanding of the ratio between the two. If you like, so that's what's kind of complex with this. If you're looking at students with disabilities and their special education teachers, you'll get the ratio. Special education is students with disabilities.
So you're saying students with IEPs, our ratio of students with IEPs to total students is lower than those other districts probably then? Is that what you're?
I don't know, we'd have to look at every
Okay.
single.
Yeah, I was just curious based on that slide.
I think instead of looking at the unduplicated enrollment and comparing the students to the unduplicated enrollment,
Yeah.
you want to compare it to the students with disabilities and the special education teachers.
I still thought it was interesting, even if it is the general population, that there was that difference. Just curious about it.
We're wondering if you have an original, like a PDF, something, that information is not in the published agenda packet.
I opened the YouTube video and took a screenshot.
Oh.
So it was in the line, so the information he has is in your presentation that you put up here.
That's correct.
But it's not in, and Sarah, Dr. Sun said we would amend it, but maybe as you're answering his question, we can pull that slide back up.
There was one page, wasn't there, that we didn't
Yeah,
have.
sorry, that was confusing for all of us because we were trying to follow it. It's okay, we don't have that.
Neri, did you want to make a comment?
Thanks for the presentation. This question might not be strictly for the special education department, but rather for the entire district. Last week, I attended a presentation about Latin student achievement, and I was almost surprised to see that multi-tiered system of supports looked like it was already a program fully implemented. Now, MTSS and Universal Design for Learning were adopted by the district 3 or so years ago. Then there was some training led by Jen Gripman, I believe. And then we've asked multiple times for updates on how the training and implementation is going, and we haven't received that. So we're a little surprised to see that now it appears, as part of the lingo of the district, that MTSS is going full force. And so we would like to see some details on how that was accomplished and how it is going. And alongside with that, the absence of universal design for learning in that adoption of the lingo as something that the district is supposed to implement. Because you asked, you know, what are the magic programs and bullets that could be used in order to improve not only special education, but education in the entire district. And the district already adopted 2 interrelated programs, and but I don't think, or I haven't seen any solid proof that it's fully implemented. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from anybody? Anybody remotely? No? Okay, so we're going to adjourn this item.
Thank you so much, President Hopwood, Board Trustee, Superintendent Stone. I'll follow up with the information about the SELPA as well as I apologize for the slides not being, that was, I think, last-ditch efforts, and sorry. We'll get them updated for everybody. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So we are going to move on now to item 13, review and action. And I believe it's going to be Ms. Gonzalez and Superintendent Stone.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Can we bring up the job description, please? So tonight, the presentation that you just heard was a wonderful, preface and segue into this item. Tonight we're bringing a job description for program coordinator, and I know that you've had time to review it in your packet. The purpose of this position would be to support the special ed department in doing exactly what Dr. Biggs described, in helping to develop and or improve programs, mainly with the purpose of keeping our kids here in our district instead of sending them out elsewhere. So, you know, I won't go through each detail. You've had a chance to review it, but myself and Superintendent Stone are available to answer any questions.
Any board questions about this position, job description? Anyone?
Well, I have a comment, just that in all of the other districts that I have worked in or work in, this position exists, and it is a vital position, and it offers a lot of support, checks and balances, and so I think it's a valuable step.
Yeah, and we just talked about the $200,000 per student to send out of the district, and this is a position that would help to provide services in Albany. So sounds good, and all the details look good. Anybody in the public have any questions or comments?
Sorry, it's one of those evenings. I'm glad to hear that the board seems to be in support of this position. And just to add some color commentary, you know, ideally, the director of special education should be focused solely on big picture strategic items. And unfortunately, without the support of a position like this, he's oftentimes putting out small fires that he shouldn't be spending his time on, and being taken away from the strategic work that he needs to do to make the special education department much better. So hopefully you'll vote in support for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from anyone? No?
I move to approve this job description.
Program coordinator.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes. Next one is still yours, Marina, I think.
Yes, I think the next three are mine. Okay, so this is just bringing forward the classified management salary schedule. And if we scroll down, we will see that we're just amending this to remove a range that was on here, range 14, because we've decided it was for the chief business official position, and we are going in a different direction. You know, we've posted and advertised for a contracted position, so we just want to formalize that here.
Anyone have questions? Anyone in the public? No one online? Anybody want to make a motion to approve?
I move to approve the classified management salary schedule update.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 That passes, thank you. The next one is 13C, the certificated management salary schedule.
Yes, and so that one, I think I noted in the backup here that there are two sort of things that are happening here. One is establishing range 275, which is, this probably should have come after the program coordinator. It establishes a range for the program coordinator on this salary schedule. And then if we scroll down to the salary schedule, it kind of cleans up some language in 405 and even in 425. Rather than list the specific department, it's just, you know, folks who are at this level, an executive director. That's all we really need to say. So it's just clean up language on there.
Yeah, I like how that is just standardized. Anyone have questions about this salary schedule? Would like to make a motion?
I move that we approve the certificated management salary schedule.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Okay, and then the next item, some of you have seen this multiple times already. Annually, the Ed Code requires that we establish our tie-breaking criteria so that in the event that we had to do reductions and there was a tie in seniority, we would use this criteria to break that tie. I say this every year, but this is no way intended to like foreshadow that we have like big reductions coming or anything. So it's just a requirement.
Comfortable?
Can I just ask a question? Is it different from the last time you looked at it? Does it change? Okay.
No. I think maybe one of my first years there were some edits, and then I think everybody could live with what's here. Yeah.
I move to approve resolution number 2024-25-12 to determine tie-breaking criteria for certificated employees.
I second the motion.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I think those are all my items. Yeah. Thank you.
Great. So moving on to 13E, which is the board members' school site assignments. I'm not sure who was going back to my online. Yeah, okay, Superintendent Stone, this is yours.
Yes, I wanted to just bring to the attention of the board tonight that we are asking for board members to kind of take ownership and be assigned to specific school sites, and would just offer that this is the recommendation, which you can see.
And we've all approved these. So as in amongst ourselves, everyone has sort of allocated and agreed.
I think as we move forward, we've done this typically in a meeting in the past, so if we're going to change that, I think we should just let it be known that we maybe have a different style, or know that next time we'll do it when we do committees all at once. I don't know, are there thoughts on that? Or
I think it was just complicated this year, this season, because of the committees being suspended, etc. So we just wanted to kind of get these going, because otherwise we don't have much of the year left to actually get comfortable in our new schools. So we're doing it now. It's a little bit of a different format this time around, but we're happy with our assignments, so we could just go ahead and, if anyone's comfortable, to move to approve these assignments.
I move to approve the board school assignments as follows: Albany Children's Center, Trustee Mahoney; Cornell Elementary, President Hopwood; Marin Elementary, Vice President Mahoney; Ocean View Elementary, myself; Albany Middle School as Trustee Davidson; and AHS and McGregor as Trustee Inglis.
I will second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then moving on to 13F, which is committee assignments. I think that's also Superintendent Stone.
Yes, so thank you. So tonight we are working to determine and approve board members' committee assignments. Already discussed earlier tonight that our board policy subcommittee has started and met, but we are looking to ensure that board members are on other committees as we see here. So we have the Board Policy Committee, Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, which are both board committees and are a part of the board supports. We also have three other committees. We have a Special Education Advisory Committee, which is a district staff committee, and of course we would like to have a board member or several attend those if possible. We also have the Student Achievement Committee, which again is the district staff committee, and this is again something that we would appreciate if there was a board member or board members who could attend. This is the committee that discusses very important. It's not the only committee that does this, but it is the committee that really talks about our LCAP and helps to make decisions around that to be recommended to the board. And we also have the District English Learner Advisory Committee, which is, again, a district staff committee, super important committee. Again, one of the committees that does help to make recommendations for our LCAP. And we also have another committee that I am currently just pausing, which is our Wellness Advisory Committee. Part of the reason for that is there's so many different possibilities for what the Wellness Advisory Committee could be talking about and could be working on. And I'd really like to finish my 90-day my work, hearing what is happening across the district, and start to really be able to think about what that Wellness Advisory Committee could be focused on in terms of some priorities and goals that we can agree on. Again, would love to have folks make some decisions tonight about these other committees.
I would love to be back on the Special Education Advisory Committee. I took a break for a little while, and I'm happy to do it with anyone else, but I would be very interested in that one.
I would also like to continue on the Special Education Committee.
Are there any board members interested in our DLAC or our Student Achievement Committee?
I mean, I could be. I'm a little bit nervous because my Thursdays at that time are a little challenging.
I'm interested in the Student Achievement Committee as well, but schedule will be a little bit spotty.
Hey, maybe why don't we both be on it and we'll coordinate and make sure that one of us can try and be there. We've done that in the past.
We'll give it a shot.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So you two are going to take student achievement, and then Sadia and Bonnie to special ed, and then we've got remaining District English Learners Advisory Committee. Okay, so I wouldn't be able to make the Feb 12th meeting, but I could do the April one. I'm wondering whether Trustee Inglis would want to do, because these are staff committees, so these are just, we can go, to observe, and yeah, we're not running them. So whether you would be able to do the District English Learners Advisory Committee meeting on Wednesday, February the 12th.
I think so, yes.
And I could take the 23rd of April.
Yes, I'll do it.
And as well, yeah, that's great.
Oh,
And
thank you.
we can have two, you can go in addition to as well. Yeah, is that okay? Great, yeah, that sounds good. Or instead of, it's also fine. Yeah, actually, Sadia, so do you have currently just the special education, or did you, yeah. Do you want to do the English Learners Advisory? I'm just thinking because Trustee Inglis and I are going to be on the board policy, which is meeting every other week for 2 hours. So that might, if you were going to, okay to take the, because that's just got the 2 meetings for the English learners, is that okay? And the special ed. Okay, but no, you're off the hook then. You're good. Okay, great. So it looks like we've got, yeah, and so we've got Wellness Advisory Committee, we're not allocating anybody. District English Learners Advisory Committee will be Trustee Khan. Student Achievement Committee will be Vice President Mahoney and Trustee Davidson, and then Special Education Advisory Committee will be Trustees Khan and Davidson. Citizens Bond Oversight currently is Vice President Mahoney, and Board Policy Committee is me and Trustee Inglis. So it looks like we've covered everything.
Can I join Student Achievement Committee and Special Education Advisory Committee?
And you absolutely can join as many as you would like, yeah. And then we can always ask Ayush as well what he would like to do, yeah. That's great, thank you so much.
I believe that Ayush is also interested in the Student Achievement Committee.
That's
but,
right, yeah.
We can confirm that when he's back.
Two board members can attend any.
Absolutely, yeah, that's exactly, yeah, my point is, yes, many
And I
as
think the
many as you can make.
Citizen Bond Oversight Committee one is challenging because the schedule is TBD.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'll see, but I don't have a TBD schedule, so.
No.
It doesn't.
There you go. Yeah.
get it right?
DLAC for
Sadia.
February is Trustee Khan.
She's just going to do it now, period. Yeah. Yeah. Only two, so that's good.
I'm sorry, did I miss that? I thought that Trustee Davidson was going to be on the Special Ed Advisory Committee.
Yeah. Okay.
And not the Student Achievement Committee.
She's going to trade
Both.
Yeah, both of those.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Trade out on the student achievement,
And
so
then-
we're like one.
And then Juliet's going to be Sadia for both of the DLAC meetings.
Okay. Okay.
There you go.
Great.
That'll look.
Is that correct?
Does that look good to everyone? Great. Okay, so that was 13F. So we have.
President Hopwood?
Yes.
I'm sorry, this needs to have a vote.
We should have a
for
vote,
this one.
exactly, yeah. So that's sorted and everyone's had a look and we're comfortable. So can someone move to approve the committee assignments now that we've got those?
I move to approve the board members' committee assignments as on the screen.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. So that's concluding our review and action portion of the meeting. And we're now moving on to item 14, which is superintendent and board member reports. Should we start with this? We do, yes. Okay, so Superintendent Stone, it's you're up for your report.
All right, wonderful. I'm going to share my screen as I do actually have a quick presentation I'd like to make tonight for my report. All right. It has been a very exciting, not quite 2 months since I began my superintendency, but I am going on 2 months. And in this time so far, I've met with several groups of students, mostly at the high school. I've met with multiple teachers, school counselors from both the middle and the high school, other staff members, including administrative assistants, para-educators at the middle and high school, and the maintenance and operations team, as well as some food services staff. And you can kind of see just the representation overall of who I have met so far on this graphic. Some areas of strength that have been brought to my attention so far about Albany, really highlighting the sense of community and the small and close-knit community, not only adult community, but also student community. Really appreciating the diversity and inclusion, especially the affinity groups and our collaboration with the Lishan Nation. Student supports that are available, such as mental health, college preparation, career pathways. Students specifically highlighted that these are really important to them. Staff collaboration, teachers and staff emphasize just how incredible their teams are and how much they support or how much they appreciate the support that they get from their colleagues, and how innovative that time is, and it's well spent with their colleagues. And there's this notion that I hear a lot of pride often in other districts about work that people do, but I have to say that in meeting with the maintenance and operations team, I think and as well as the food services team, just the absolute pride that they take in the work that they do to maintain safe and functional school environments and healthy organic meals for students. The members really understand how important it is to center students in their work. And that was just really, really one of my favorite experiences that I've had so far. Along, of course, with meeting with students. That's always my favorite. Some areas for growth that have been brought to my attention so far, and again, these are just the start of information, and I'm going to be sharing it along the way, and eventually I'll be bringing, more of the total themes and priorities that are really lifting, that I can lift up to you. But some areas for growth, students who transfer into our district and students who are from historically marginalized groups continue to share that they face some inclusion and support challenges. Definitely concerns about limited representation of students and staff of color. A call for more culturally responsive teaching and inclusive curriculum development, including universal design for learning, and really shoring up our multi-tiered systems of support. Continued need for expanded mental health services, and really wanting to continue to build out holistic supports, which include emotional well-being and extracurricular opportunities. Teachers really, and not just teachers, staff in general, but teachers did really call out the need for more professional learning and collaboration time, as well as better district communication around opportunities for these. And there's a call for more equitable resource allocation to meet our growing operational demands. So this was great for me. And again, I'm learning and I'm getting a sense of where I really am going to need to spend time and attention as I develop my specific plan, and then also thinking about working with the community to develop our strategic plan in the future. And so I'm going to have to continue this listening campaign, because number one, it's giving me so much important information, and number two, it's really wonderful to be able to meet all of the different members of our community. So with that, I'll continue meeting with students and staff from all of the different schools. I have scheduled time at the elementary schools, beginning when I get back from where I am. And I'm also going to begin meeting with parent and community groups. Along with this, I'll be sending out a survey to the community to ensure that any voices that I haven't been able to hear, they have an opportunity to share what's going well and what areas we can grow. And so this will help me prioritize those initiatives and continue to really think about how we can foster a sense of belonging in our district. And as I mentioned when I did my 90-day plan, I will be analyzing and summarizing themes and sharing those with the board, staff, and community after my 90 days. This will help us all to develop those actionable priorities and strategies to support the growth of our district. One thing that really has come up, though, in this time for my listening, as well as just something that I'm hearing a lot across our district consistently, is that we really need to continue to focus on creating a strong sense of belonging for every single student, staff, and community member. Brene Brown says that a deep sense of love and belonging is irreducible need of all people. We are biologically, cognitively, physically, and spiritually wired to love, be loved, and to belong. When those needs are not met, we don't function as well as we are meant to. We break, we fall, we numb, we ache, we hurt others, we get sick. And along with some research from Dr. Bruce Perry, who talks about the neurosequential model, we know that the way that the brain works is you actually cannot get to the learning if you have what's called an amygdala hijack. If your brain stem is activated because you do not feel a sense of belonging, you actually can't get to where you're doing the most of your learning, which is in your cortex. So it's really important that as we continue to think about what we are doing, how we are doing it, that we're really centering this idea of belonging for each and every student, family, and community member, staff member. I just basically went over this, but belonging, we need to ensure that we're creating that sense of security for each and every student, staff, and family member. And We need to make sure that people can show up authentically with who they are and know that they are going to be accepted and welcomed. Now, AUSD has a rich history of immigration. We know that, which has helped us to actually have an incredibly rich and diverse community. We also know that AUSD values and celebrates diversity and recognizes the diverse perspectives that inspire creativity, innovation, and combat discrimination. These are a few of the reasons why I wanted to come and be the superintendent of AUSD, because this is really clear that this is important in our community. And also the district acknowledges historical struggles with race, equity, prejudice within our community and within our state. I just want to highlight tonight AUSD's commitment. In light of much of what has been happening from the federal government, it's important that I name that AUSD has had a commitment to ensuring that all students and families feel safe and know that they belong, and that we are a district that is dedicated to creating an environment where all students, regardless of actual or perceived race, ethnicity, nationality, immigration status, religion, age, disability, sexual orientation, or association with others, feel welcomed, valued, and supported to succeed. I also want to recognize that there is much work that remains to make sure that we're achieving this. We say the Pledge of Allegiance before each meeting. In the last line is liberty and justice for all. And it's important that we're really continuing to focus on creating a system that creates justice for all. Again, some of the reasons why I came to be the superintendent of this amazing community is because of my core values, which seem to align very well with much of the core values that I was able to glean from information about the district and my understanding of Albany. My core values around curiosity, transparency, liberation, creativity, and integrity really all are actually centered in making sure that each and every student has what they need to be able to be successful. Actually today, I was in a session with the incredible Dr. Trudy Arriaga, and what she had this definition of equity that I wanted to bring to our district. Each person across all dimensions of difference will have access to opportunities, resources, and support available to foster one's unique potential without giving up on who they are or limiting who they can become. So I'm here tonight during my board report to just share my commitment. I'm committed to fostering a physically and emotionally safe environment where all students can thrive and have full access to academic instruction. I am committed to the well-being and safety of historically marginalized and racialized communities, including Black, Indigenous, Latina, Jewish, Muslim, Arab, Asian American, Pacific Islander, and LGBTQIA individuals, and anyone else, everyone else. I am committed to the well-being of each and every student, staff, and community member. I stand firmly against hate speech, and acts of discrimination and violence, and I will be working with our community to develop a shared commitment and plan to stand against hate and create a sense of belonging for all. These are some pictures that I was able to take of our beautiful community, as well as the delicious and nutritious meal that I was able to have at the high school, which I'm still raving about. And I'm ending with this. You are loved, accepted, and celebrated just as you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I think we'll start down with Trustee Inglis, your board report, if you have one.
My 15 minutes being assigned to the high school, I have 3 announcements. The PTSA meeting is on Monday night at 7 p.m. in the library. It's going to be focused on planning for graduation, so if you want to get involved, that would be great. And the teacher appreciation is another topic they're going to be covering. Black History Month celebration is going to happen at the Little Theater on February 13th at 6 p.m. And Valentine Grahams go on sale on January 29th from the various choirs. Thank you.
We have the SWANA Parent Engagement Group with their first meeting this Thursday, the 30th, at the Ocean View Library from 6 to 7 p.m. Pizza will be provided. It's open to all so that the group can start planning their events, including a Holy event and also an Eid event and a couple others that they're already thinking of. Next, we have the Ocean View Dance, as well as the 4th grade bake sale, which is taking place this Friday, the 31st, at the MPR, and it starts at 5 and goes until 7 p.m. The API Parent Engagement Group is having our Lunar New Year celebration at the Ocean View MPR as well, from 4:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Friday the 9th. February the 9th. Sorry, guys, I'm tired. And then lastly, the Ocean View PTA is planning for board elections. If you are interested in running for a position or just to learn more about what positions are available or serving on the election committee, please reach out to the board president as soon as possible. Our next meeting is in February. I don't have the date yet, but it's on the calendar.
I'm not making a board report tonight.
First of all, happy belated 100th day of school for those who celebrate. Also, I am actively recruiting for the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. You saw my recent, yes, we have flyers. Applications are open. Be there. It'll probably be the most fun committee, I think. A couple other announcements. Marin is selling popsicles to raise money for those affected by the LA fires until the February break. So get a popsicle and do a good thing. Marin Morning is on February 5th, and movie night is on the 7th, The Wild Robot. And I hesitate even to announce it because movie night sells out. So, maybe I over-publicize. And then last but not least, for those of us at the Albany Children's Center, and I don't know what's causing all the feedback, reminder, TKK information night is tomorrow at 6:30.
I don't really have a report other than having just taken over Cornell. I'm looking forward to getting involved there. I know there's a PTA meeting next week at 6 till 7:30 on Tuesday. Is that right? Let me have a quick look and double check that. I just found this on the calendar. It did shock me because it said it was 6 to 7:30 a.m. and I was thinking I will not be able to make it Thursday. It's actually p.m., thankfully. Yeah, other than that, nothing for me, but thank you so much. So now we...
Community time tomorrow, so if you're willing to join.
Wait, I'm literally just looking at the calendar to... Thanks, Neri. And then now, moving on to matters introduced by the board. So future agenda items now. Anybody have any future agenda items?
The two I had from today's conversation, a framework for structured affinity, recognition of affinity groups, and multi-tiered systems of support and UDL update.
Right, anybody else? I've got those two down too. Anybody other agenda items?
We already sent an email to Dr. Stone, so.
Oh, wow, you're on it. Okay, great. Nobody else? No? Well, that is that. And now I am adjourning the meeting at 9:59. Thank you so much, everyone.